It's the 11th of May, and today's little brief update, upload, and share is with regard to the ongoing human rights violations and wrongdoings that are occurring in my hometown, Tralee, County Kerry. As I've mentioned ad nauseum, that people are probably very, very tired of hearing about, there have been societal obstacles and financial, creative, intellectual property theft from my portfolio of work that have culminated as very serious wrongdoings against my credentials and my experiences, etc. Like every artist, like every expressionist, like every professional, any kind of intellectual creative theft is quite insulting, and it's not very professional. Now, as I've mentioned, there's been a lot of unlawful actions, and there have been liberties manipulated and offended in my particular circumstance. And there have been people quite audacious that have claimed authority over my portfolio, my property, that they've seem to have thought it their entitlement to discuss or claim ownership of my human rights, my constitutional rights, and that culminates as treason. So that's one big, huge offence that's occurring in all of this. As I've mentioned, I'm a recovery advocate, and I've experienced intrusions of practitioners that have been assisting hate crime. So there's hate crime, treason, constitutional wrongdoings, and human rights violations. And this is since I became a married mother in 2015. So it's quite surprising that individuals would be facilitating such awful injustice, discrimination, and inequality. And it's quite rude that strangers would take it upon themselves to claim ownership of another person's rights and entitlements without having any entitlement to claim any such audacious ownership of a human being in any way, in any shape or form. But this is what's happening in my experience, and these people have had no interaction with me. And I'm trying to rationalize every day. I'm a recovery advocate, and I'm rationalizing the insanity of this situation and people that have offended the state, that have offended recovery, that have offended progress, that have offended so many pillars of society, have been defamatory. They've disrespected, as I've mentioned yesterday, my university experience, which was really a full rounded, multifaceted, fantastic university experience in the University of Limerick, which I absolutely am a very grateful mother for, very grateful educator for that experience of language and cultural studies. It was multifaceted, and I think it was the foundations I laid in my humanitarian work in Limerick that helped me evolve as a humanitarian, and it was absolutely fantastic. So that's been disrespected as well, and as a founding member, I'm going to boast, as a founding member of the Rotaract Club in the University of Limerick, the first Rotaract Club, in 2003, I think the humanitarian experience took off from there after I qualified, and I had the pleasure and gratitude and humility to meet some of the most fantastic academics that are from home and abroad, and that really were unforgettable. So those kind of experiences are huge life experiences. And those individuals that are offending me to this day, disrespecting those experiences, aren't fully knowledgeable or equipped in their assertions and assumptions and so on and so forth. And those assertions and assumptions that have been espoused, publicised, and so on and so forth by this collective of social influencers since 2006, very intrusive, have now gone to the stage in this cycle of hate crime with allegations and very serious falsehoods against my good name, character, and reputation. So I'm tolerating quite a lot. And I'm very grateful for the fellowship and my experience as a recovery advocate with regard to the insanity of this entire circumstance. It's quite shocking. The point of this upload today, though, is with regard to the loose terms of individuals that are applying terminology that isn't actually fitting, appropriate, or accurate, or based in any reality of this circumstance. I live on my own. I'm experiencing isolation in my community. It's hate crime. I'm waiting for my child to be in my care, unlawfully withheld from me. I'm waiting for people to address the debts that they owe me. I'm waiting for people to address the housing and property issue. Individuals of unlawful actions making assumptions that they're deciding about my marriage for me. It's quite shocking. So these people think that they have ownership of my rights. And in fact, they're in contempt thereof offences prior to and presently in this entire debacle. It's very dangerous what's happened to my rights. They've been damaged, disrespected, and my experience and calibre of character have been defamed, and these people have no interaction, no engagement. So this is quite shocking. So these matters happen, you think, sometimes far away in other countries that they, but in Tralee, County Kerry, in the southwest of Ireland, where I'm born and bred, where I've worked all my life. I'm working since I was young. I've had loads of fantastic work experiences in all the fields that I'm interested in. I'm a grateful, qualified professional, and these matters have downgraded so many standards in professional practices where people have not respected good practice, good procedure, protocol, etc., etc. And it's very disappointing. And I'm smiling because I am absolutely, I haven't seen the likes of it really before. As I said, you've seen this kind of hype about hate crime in other places, but when it happens to a person in your own experience or yourself, someone close to you or to yourself, it's quite shocking. As a humanitarian, these individuals that have obstructed my success, that have intruded upon my success, and that have been offended with my success to demonstratively damage my role as a mom, my role as a teacher. These people have been really spiteful, and as a healer, as a spiritual sentient being, from that perspective, those kind of negatives, those kind of destructive behavioural patterns, etc., are quite toxic, and they set a really bad example to young people. And as a teacher, I have a concern about those kind of examples being demonstrated in society. So those purporting that cycle of destructive behavioural patterns, destructive emotional patterns, and using terminology that isn't fitting, that isn't appropriate, and that isn't accurate, and that isn't based in real life circumstance, and that is defamatory. I would hope that practitioners would have better sense to improve of their esteem and their assertions with more accurate assumptions or interpretations that are reality based. There's been a lot of falsehood, there's been a lot of false reporting, and my obligation to my identity, my obligation to my protection seems that the relevant bodies haven't respected my privacy and my protection and haven't done what they're supposed to be doing. That's the reason for these uploads in this documentary, and that's as a creative artist with my qualifications in language and cultural studies from the University of Limerick between 1999 and 2003, which I'm very grateful for. So as a professional, I'm concerned what people think they're doing, discussing or taking ownership of a person's rights where they have no remit and when there are repeat offences. That's a clear point I think I need to share today, and I hope those of good sense and good practice, etc., that have obligations, whether they like to turn a blind eye or whether they want to make matters worse. I've tolerated quite a lot, and obstructions and blockades to people's progress, especially when they've been for other people's progress, is quite injurious to the representation of the field of qualification or expertise that that person represents, which would be insulted or injured by careless malpractice that is evident in my experience. So that's my point for today. I hope I haven't to upload or share again later. It's not comforting to be in this circumstance, but when there's so many, hurdles, and when people aren't doing their jobs, I think it's important for people to be aware, to be cognizant of the reality of what is and what isn't. The reality is what we all need to be aware of, and that's the role of media, and that's the role of broadcasting, and that's the role of journalism, and that's the role of good productivity, I suppose, as well. So that's my upload from Tralee, County Kerry, the southwest of Ireland today, and I hope humanitarians throughout the world will be able to raise awareness with regard to the struggles that I'm tolerating in poor living conditions, etc., waiting for my child to be in my care and for people to fulfill their obligations, duties and responsibilities. I've been waiting 5.5 years.